Peace, family. My name is Vicki Dillard for African Diaspora News Channel. Thank you so much for tuning in, family. Now, I've discussed Robert F. Kennedy Jr. a few times. I certainly have been discussing different aspects related to him. One in particular, and I was supposed to show some clips here on the network related to my confrontation with him right here in Colorado last summer. He came here to Colorado, and I was handpicked as a part of a small, intimate group that had the opportunity to directly talk to him and ask him questions. Well, I happened to divinely be put in place to be the first and only one allowed to ask him questions. By the time I was done with him, he and his team told the rest of the attendees they won't be able to ask any questions. He did his closing statement and left when I was done. I was very hospitable, cordial, and respectful. But how many of you all know I don't back down or back up for anybody, whether you come from a Kennedy dynasty, your family with the former presidents and attorney general, and also presidential candidate, or if you running to be president yourself. How many of you all know Vicki doesn't back down and back up? More on that later. But anyway, family, he went on not too long ago a very big, major Christian network known as Daystar. Now, some folks were shocked that he actually had some of the discussions that he had with them, specifically related to the agenda of George Soros and Bill Gates. Watch this.
Tell me, what do you think about when I say Bill Gates, George Soros, and some of the other elite?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Gates and Soros, and I know most about Gates, because I've written a book about him, and that what he calls philanthrocapitalism, which is you use philanthropy to make yourself rich, and you use it strategically, and that's what he's done again and again. He's gotten control of the World Health Organization so that they mandate vaccines all over the world, and the companies that make those vaccines are Gates is, in many of them, the major shareholder. And he did the same thing with the Green Revolution. He got a hold of the regulatory agencies in African countries and forced them to take to change the nature of agriculture. There's 20,000 generations of agriculture of people growing crops like sorghum and plantains and yucca and all these plants for subsistence. And he said, no, we're going to transfer them all to these, GMO monocultures of corn, and then we're going to bring in companies that he owns, Kraft, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, these big food companies, processing companies, to buy that, and that's going to be the deal.
Now, how many of you all know? How many of y'all saw that? Isn't that interesting? Now, what I find interesting about this is that a lot of folks are tripping that these types of conversations are starting to happen. But how many of you all know that voices like mine were following all the rules, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, and we were bringing to the public's attention, especially our people, these types of things, but they didn't necessarily get the traction or the respect that they should have gotten, yes, early on. But notwithstanding that, it's good that these sorts of things are coming out, and it's shaking up Washington, D.C., is shaking up the United States at large, and it's shaking up different parts of the world because of these very powerful voices that are making mainstream stuff that we were saying, but some of the things we were saying were suppressed. Now, what's interesting is with Daystar and other similar evangelical Christian networks, is that they like to pick and choose what big boogeymen and what hidden hands they like to highlight. See, the ones that's behind them folks over there in the Middle East, we're going to say it like that, right? We're going to put our twist on it. Them folks over there, not those folks, them folks over there. They don't want to discuss those kinds of individuals, right? But they want to highlight these. We'll take that too. But I just wanted to be really clear that I find it very interesting that these sorts of things are coming out. And you can imagine, I was reading some of the comments that were under there, but I was also just in general paying attention to some of the responses of other similar conversations that happen on other platforms, and not necessarily with that particular interview. But folks are really, really tripping And they're actually shocked that these conversations are allowed to be happening on platforms that they think are more respectable. Well, of course they are. I said, but of course they are. And one of the things I want to always remind those that like to keep us silenced, to try to prevent, frustrate, and foil our influence, is always going to backfire, baby. It doesn't matter how big or bad you are. It doesn't matter if the establishment media, the establishment systems, and institutions accept you. Beloved, there's another unseen government that's at work in the world. And I'm telling you, we may not have handpicked the individuals that are allowing these things to be exposed, but we'll take it. My name is Vicki Dillard, beloved. Be sure to follow me on my own channel at VickiDillard.tv right here on YouTube, or VickiDillard.tv. You can access me live there from time to time. Of course, always be sure to check in with my commentary here on African Diaspora News Channel. I can't wait to